In The Rise of Skywalker, we got a flashback scene of Luke and Leia engaging in a lightsaber training session, while the Force ghost of Luke Skywalker speaks to Rey about Leia's Jedi path and why ultimately she chose to give it up. But in this video, we'll be diving into a couple of questions that could draw some confusion for obvious reasons. The first one being, why was Leia trained as a Jedi in the first place? And the second, what was the point in giving up her Jedi path, or more specifically, was it the right choice? Before addressing the first question, let's lay out what we know. By the time Leia began her training, the Empire had already been long gone. There was no imminent threat of the Sith returning, at least not that anyone knew of, so there was no need for Luke to establish a new Jedi Order, other than the fact that it was Yoda's dying wish that Luke pass on what he learned. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because the answer is actually pretty obvious, and that is that Luke trained Leia and after that proceeded to take on the next generation of Jedi, because fighting the dark side is not the Jedi's main purpose anyways.
We're keepers of the peace, not soldiers.
They are there to maintain peace and justice in the galaxy, and to ensure that balance in the Force continues, which, yes, can result in violence when a new evil rises. And that's the point. Balance in the Force was never meant to be an everlasting phenomenon, so recognizing the potential, or more accurately the promise of darkness eventually rising once more, Luke and his teachers understand that the Jedi must live on. At least until Luke loses his nephew to the dark side and goes off to contemplate his entire existence for 7 years. But at this particular point in time, Luke has his head on straight and he understands his purpose, so training his sister, who has the potential to wield the Force at an extremely high level, makes perfect sense. But the more interesting question here is, did Leia make the right choice in surrendering her saber to Luke, in giving up her Jedi path to save her son, with the confidence that one day someone else would finish her journey? Well, it is laid out very clearly in the movie that Leia chose not to become a Jedi to save her son, but Ben ends up dying anyways. And yes, Luke says that one day someone would finish her journey, and that person obviously becomes Rey. But does this then mean that Leia anticipated that whoever picked up her journey would then hold her son's destiny in their hands just as she did? And does that also mean that in this scene, Luke is well aware that his nephew is about to die, despite also knowing that Ben Solo has now turned to the light? Leia's main purpose throughout nearly this entire trilogy is to get her son back, to free him from the clutches of the dark side and help him find the light at the end of this very dark road he is on. And even in this scene, it makes far more sense to assume that Leia believes whoever picks her journey up will not hold Ben's fate the way she did. Otherwise, she would have just destroyed her lightsaber when giving her path up, right? So this scene sort of seems like one big contradiction, which says Leia gave up her Jedi path out of fear for her son's death, but it turns out that she was wrong because her son turned to the dark side and then died in the prime of his life anyways. But the reality here, at least in my estimation, is that what I just said is 100% accurate, and it actually makes complete and total sense. Leia's failure to face her fears and instead allow them to dominate her destiny is part of her entire family's legacy. Anakin allowed his premonitions of Padme's death to result in his turn to the dark side, and that did eventually lead to exactly what he feared in the first place. And had he not allowed his nightmares to get the better of him, in all likelihood, Padme would have survived. Luke fears that Ben Solo is going to destroy everything he loves, so out of fear, he considers striking him down, and even though he comes to his senses, he allows his fear to get the best of him, which then directly causes his fears to come true. Now we come to Leia, who fears her son will die if she pursues the path of a Jedi, so she gives that path up, and what happens? Her worst fear comes to fruition when her journey is picked back up by the person she assumed would be able to save her son. This same story has now played out on 3 separate occasions for the Skywalker family, as they allow the fear of loss to cloud their ability to act rationally and make good decisions. Now, I do recognize the potential for Ben Solo to return, which would give this scenario a complete 180, because now Leia's sacrifice would make sense for the opposite reason, as her decision to give up becoming a Jedi actually did save her son, as she gives her life force at the end of the movie to bring him back to life. And that would make just as much sense and would obviously make for a much happier and fulfilling ending, but if for whatever reason that story does not come to light, I think the explanation I just laid out gives a pretty good explanation for Leia's decision. And so in closing, the answer to the question, if Ben really is dead, would be no. Leia did not make the right choice. She should have continued her Jedi path and maintained her course, looking out for any legitimate threats to her son's life, but not allowing fear to cloud her judgment entirely like Anakin did. But that's my explanation for why things played out the way they did, so I'm going to wrap this video up here. Comment your guys' thoughts about Leia's sacrifice in The Rise of Skywalker down below. Please remember to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed, and may the Force be with you always.